Hello, John. How are you today?
I'm great, Mike. Thank you for inviting me onto the show.
Thank you. Um, First of all, I think it's great to have you on the show just to kind of give our athletes a little more about the other side of sports, more than just being in a gym playing handball. And I think it'd be great for you to give some of your expertise, your company's own, to just tell us a little more about it. So, first of all, if you can just give us a brief history about yourself and what you've done over the years.
I got involved. I was a hockey player. I was a goalie. Um, and one of the things that being a goalie, and whether it's handball or hockey or lacrosse, although it's a team sport, when you're the goalie, often it's an individual sport within a team sport. Um, and I quickly realized I started late in hockey. Um, and so I had to really learn and learn quickly. And one of the things, unbeknownst, that I didn't realize I was doing to myself at the time is I was putting a lot of pressure on myself. And, I put a lot of demands on myself. And as a result, I would get easily frustrated and easily angry and lose, emotional control. And as a goalie, you definitely don't want to be showing that to your teammates or to the opposition.
Mhm.
So I got really fascinated. I've always been really, really fascinated, even outside of sports. Like, Michael Phelps was a guy that I was really, what is this guy doing? Particularly because he had been diagnosed with ADHD. Um, any of these extreme artists, like even executives, like Tesla, Elon Musk. I always got really fascinated with elite performers, and so for myself, I was, what are the best doing? What can I do to help me to stay more calm, mentally focused? Because if I didn't, I wasn't going to get to my dreams. Um, so that's how I got involved in the psychology part of it, because I started to realize that, when you get to the top levels, I don't care what sport it is, pretty much everybody's really good. Everybody has the physical and technical. Obviously there's a little bit differences. Some people are faster and stronger, but when it really comes to that elite level, it's the mindset, it's your mental skills, and so that helped me a lot to get to the level that I did. And then once I finished my career, I got actively involved as a coach. And I started at the university level and then progressed to the Western Hockey League. And then from there, I got invited to be the goalie coach for the Edmonton Oilers, their farm team. And I did a lot of scouting, and that was a fantastic opportunity. And I just listening to some of your podcasts when other athletes have gone to Japan and to other countries, and to see what they're doing. And for me to go across North America and the world and to see and study what the best goalies in the world were doing, it really helped me. I had a goalie school here in Edmonton for close to 25 years. So the Oilers gave me a great opportunity to go study the best and then bring that knowledge back home. And then I got exposed to so many different mental coaches and goalie coaches. And then I also worked as a goalie coach for the Ottawa Senators for a couple of years, and those were just great experiences. And I've always, once I finished my hockey, I was really fascinated with peak performance, whether it was a surgeon, a lawyer, doctor, working with the military. I loved being able to take the skills of focus, composure, confidence, and work it with all sorts of different athletes. Personally, I think the ability to focus, the ability to stay in the moment, is one of the most crucial skills, not just for sport, but for life. And so that's how I got involved, just personally at first, because I was having some issues myself and learning how to stay calm. But then I got really fascinated, working with what top performers in a variety of sports.
That's very interesting. Um, you first talked about a little bit about you started late in hockey. What
Yep.
age did you start at?
I didn't start till I was 12, which most people now would say that is
Yeah.
just you don't have a chance. And I'm going to say no. That's you do.
So that's very interesting. You said that is that in handball, I mean, the professional leagues are in Europe, in Asia, and they start at a lot younger age. Usually, our athletes, we get them at 12 to 14 years old, and we're behind. Like we're behind. So it's exactly like hockey for us. If you don't start at 6 in Europe, the chances of you making it to the highest level uh, are quite slim. What are some of the suggestions you think, like for handball, starting a little later, or things that the athletes can really do to kind of catch up?
Well, the one thing I would say, and is it okay if I can share my screen, Mike?
Of course, yeah, please do.
So when any athlete that comes into my office, you're just going to need to share
Oh,
give me the ability to share it.
no problem. Let me find out where that is. Security, share screen. Should be on now. Can you?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
Now, I'm going to obviously show you, I call it the performance wheel. So any athlete that comes into my office, Mike,
Yeah.
can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. So one of the things that I really emphasize to me, um, I call it the difference between training smart versus training hard. And one of the things that I think Canada can do to quickly catch up, and I'll even go as far as to say surpass other countries, is most athletes often work on the top two quadrants of the wheel. They're working on their technical skills, they're really working on their physical skills, but there's very little emphasis put on the tactical, being able to develop your handball IQ. And a lot of people, a lot of coaches um, are not even aware. A lot of people, I know in the National Hockey League, there's a lot of coaches that say you can't teach this. And I'm going to, show that that's not the case whatsoever. We have literally sophisticated equipment now that can not only measure, but also train someone. And I think if they're doing this type of work, which most athletes aren't, they can quickly catch up and surpass. They'll have a skill set that other athletes may not have, around the world. And the other big thing, like, I often ask athletes and coaches, how much of handball is mental? What percentage? I mean, just curious, Mike, what would you say? Prior
It's
to you
it's
seeing this model, what would, obviously you've had lots of experience in this.
I would handball is a lot mental. I would almost give it to 40 to 50% mental. I mean, the technical skills are very, very important in handball, but if you've heard some podcasts, a lot of players that have gone to Europe have said our skills, technical skills, are at the same. It's the handball IQ that we lack. It's the understanding of the game we lack. So a lot of the tactical skills, and then the mental skills is huge when we go over to Europe, because a lot of the top athletes from here have never understood how to be part of a team where they have to start from the bottom again. So I think about 50%, 40 to 50% easily.
And usually that's kind of the lower number that I hear from athletes.
Okay.
It's at least the games, half the game's mental. And so
Yeah.
I'll say, okay, let's now according to my model,
Yeah.
what percentage have I given it?
Well, yeah, 50%.
No, 25.
Yeah, sorry, I meant for the whole bottom.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and so I'll often say, if I have a 12-year-old handball player,
yeah,
even with any sport like hockey, I just did a goalie workshop the other day, and some of the young kids were saying that 90% of the game was mental. And
hmm
I'll say, okay, if it's that important, what do you do every day to go to your mental gym to work on that skill? And I don't treat mental skills any different than working on your core or your flexibility. It's a skill. And how do you get good at something? You got to practice it. If I said to a handball player, they can only go and work on their technical skills once a week, or they can only go to the gym once a week, I'd be getting a really, a whole bunch of strange looks saying, I don't think so, John. But then I'll say, okay, what do you do to work on the mental part of the game? And a lot of the athletes, quite frankly, they don't know what to do. They literally don't know, they don't know the specific, just like if a fitness trainer said, okay, here's a dozen exercises to work on your core. I'm going to give my athletes tangible exercises that they can do to develop what I call these 7 C's of mental toughness. That being concentration, commitment. I heard you talk about commitment with Tyler and how important that was. And, being poised, being composed, especially if you're looking across, the court and you see that the team is twice the size of you, and learning how to keep your emotions under check. And so a lot of these skills we work on developing these 7 C's. So for me, ironically though, you're going to see the hub of the wheel, in my opinion, is the most important part of the wheel. And where I think a lot of athletes can catch up and surpass is a lot of athletes, like right now I'm working with a lot of NHL players and they're playing every other night, Mike. Well, for me, the most important thing is your rest and your sleep, and we're not just talking quantity, we're talking quality. And there's all sorts of things that we can do to help an athlete, improve their quality of sleep. And one of the things that makes me nervous right now is a lot of the athletes, in light of COVID, have been using a lot of electronics.
Yes.
And what a lot of the athletes don't realize is that it's one of the worst things for your brain. There's 3 primary things that it does. If you go to any concussion expert in the world, and unfortunately, if you have sustained a concussion, the first thing they tell you to do is get off your electronics. And so 3 primary things that electronics do is, 1, the blue light off of the device reduces melatonin. And so if you're getting all that blue light, it's going to really disrupt your sleep patterns. And then you're not going to get that good, deep quality sleep. And if you're going to the gym or even at home and you're doing some body weight workouts, or you're just working, outside on some technical skills, well, if you're tired, what are you going to get out of that workout? Not as much as you could. And so the other thing that the electronics does is it produces a lot more slower brainwave. And one of the things that I heard in your other podcast, Mike, is just as like any other sport, as you go up the level, the speed at which the game is played just increasingly gets faster and faster and faster. So if people are playing Call of Duty, Minecraft, Fortnite, it actually makes your brain slower. And if you're planning to get, to the provincial level or to the national level, this is something, this is not me. I mean, if you literally went into a functional MRI and you were doing this, you'll see what it does to the brain. And then the third thing that really scares me, Mike, about all of this is that a lot of these companies, gaming companies, they put reward levels into their games. And if the athlete, gets to that level, they get this kind of dopamine, release. And, they get this kind of high. And guess what they want? Guess what the brain wants?
More of it.
Right. And so next thing you know, I hear kids innocently say, well, John, I'm only doing a half an hour. And then 2 months later, they're playing 2 hours.
Yeah.
And then they're playing 3 hours. And it just has such a dramatic impact, not only on their sport, but their life. But so this is a long-winded answer. Sorry, Mike, but
No, it's great. Keep talking.
But to go back, I think, Canadian handball players can really advance because there's so much science in this now. And I know there's a lot of countries that may not be doing this type of work. and we can show kids, very specific things. Like today, I want to make sure some of the kids have some specific vision drills or concentration drills that they can do immediately, after this presentation. But this is where I start, and often what I'll do with an athlete is I will sit down, and we'll literally, like, if one of the athletes, if you were their coach, Mike, yeah, I'd say, okay, where do you need to get better where does this athlete need to get better on the technical skills? Where does this athlete need to get better physically? And excuse me, no we've partnered up with 4 different companies: Synaptic, NeuroTracker, Reflection, Visual Edge. And the one thing about this type of work, Mike, there's no guesswork now. We can literally measure an athlete with regards to their brain processing speed, their working memory, their sustained attention, selective attention. So this is literally like weight training for the brain. And we have a room here at our office, and a lot of our athletes, if they can do it now. The great thing about COVID is, as goofy as that may sound, a lot of these companies have developed training things that they can do at home now. So they can literally do them on their laptop. So instead of doing this, let's do stuff that's actually going to make the brain better and healthier for us. So this is where I think we can really catch up and actually surpass, because we can work, like you said, this bottom part of the quadrant.
Okay. That's very, very interesting. I know you're going to show some stuff, but a quick question for coaches, like in handball. A lot of them, again, at 13, 14, 15, even 16 years old, how do you get them to believe that that's an important part of the process of getting better? Because I think a big, like, our athletes are multi-sport athletes, so they come from volleyball, other sports that they do mental training, but they come with these binders, and the girls are like, this is stupid. I'm not even going to do it. I'm just going to say I'm going to do it. Or the boys, like, what are some important things as a coach to communicate with your athletes about them getting involved in that and understanding that it's as important as the other skills?
Can I give you an example, Mike, that affected me?
Yeah, of course.
And this is how I learned it. So when I was 17, my first year of university, I was struggling. It was a big jump from junior to university. The speed of the game was happening at a lot faster pace. I was playing with men now. I wasn't playing with the boys. And my goalie coach was a drill sergeant in the military. So he came back, from a very extensive drilling kind of program. And so one day he said to me, John, let's go on the ice before the main practice and let's go work on some things. And what I'm about to tell you, this is what really made me realize how important the mental side of the game is. So literally, Mike, I came out onto the ice surface, and the ice surface was pitch black. And I'm sitting there going, okay, what the heck is going on? I'm supposed to stop black pucks, and I can't see 2 feet in front of me. And next thing I know, a minute later, my goalie coach comes on the ice, and he's got his full gear on. I'd never seen that before. And he comes on the ice, and this is what he says to me, and I'm sure handball goalies can relate to this. He says, hey, Johnny, you ever heard this phrase? And I said, what's that, coach? He goes, hey, there's a minute left in the game. The goalie's going to get a shutout. And I'm like, oh, my gosh, yeah. Who just said that? And because usually when somebody says that, the curse happens. Yeah. And the very thing you don't want to have happen is the thing that does happen, you get scored on. And I will never forget this, Mike. And this is what I teach. If any of the handball players listening today, if they get anything out of this presentation today, I'd say this is the most important. So he turned to me and he asked me this question. He said, John, why did the goalie get scored on? And I turned around to him and I said, well, it's because the goalie lost his focus. Well, would you agree with that, Mike?
Well, yeah.
And he turned to me and said, no, his focus got better. And I sat there for a couple of minutes. Exactly. I sat there for a couple of minutes and I was like, what is this guy talking about? Like, no. And then all of a sudden he pulled out, you know, the old coal miner's helmet,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
floodlight.
yeah.
And he said, John, you have to think of your focus like a flashlight. And wherever your flashlight goes, that's where you're sending 100% of your energy. So he said, in fact, if anything, the goalie's focus got better. And so he said, let me show you what I mean. So he says, put the helmet on. Let's go down to the far end. Let's imagine we're up 1-0 against our arch rival with a minute left in the game. Now, he said, turn the light on and line up to the face-off dot. So I did that. I turned it on. And at that moment, he said, John, right now, where's your flashlight pointed? I said, on the dot, coach. He said, what happens if your flashlight goes up to the scoreboard because you're thinking about that win? You're thinking about that shutout. If your flashlight is on the scoreboard, guess where your flashlight's not?
Yeah.
Literally on the play that's happening right in front of you. So I'll ask any handball player, you know, when a handball player is playing well, what's their focus like? And 99% of the coaches and kids will say, oh, it's really good. Yeah. And then when a handball player is struggling, when they're having a difficult time, what's their focus like? And 99% they'll say, it's poor. No, it's awesome. In that situation, my focus was great, but it was on the wrong thing at the wrong time in the wrong way. And so in order for me to get a shutout, the best thing I can do is pay attention to the play that's happening right in front of me at that moment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because your focus is somewhere else. Yeah.
Right. And I've seen handball players, I've seen soccer, hockey, lacrosse, where their flashlight needs to be on the playing surface. Mm-hmm. But if their flashlight goes to the bench because they're worried about what the coach is thinking, guess where their flashlight's not? If their flashlight is up into the stands because they're worried about what their parents think, or they're trying to make a provincial team and they're worried about who's evaluating them, the irony of it is their focus is great, but it's not on what they need to be doing in the moment.
Yeah.
Now, here's the big thing about the mental part. So first of all, I'd say to any handball when you're playing, you have to keep your flashlight on the ice surface. Keep it on the playing surface. Okay. So the first part of my program is just having that awareness, because if you're allowing your flashlight to go to anywhere else, so when we talk about the here and now rule, some handball players, they lose their focus. They literally go to a different place. Mm-hmm. It's not on the playing surface. Now, remember the performance wheel that I just showed you?
Yes.
Now, I ask any of my athletes, what do you do all this training for? You know, what do you do all this physical training, technical training? If you get into vision training or mental training, what do you do all this training for? And what do you think the common answer is I usually get, Mike?
Well, I would say to get better.
Right. And 99% of the kids always say that, Johnny, to get better, get quicker, faster, stronger. And that's true. But that's not the main reason for training. There's two other big reasons for training. Now, similar to a math exam, or if I'm getting ready for provincials or nationals or going over to Europe or, you know, play for a team, well, if I've done everything in that quadrant, similar to the math exam, if I study, take good notes, get good sleep, take practice exams, right? If I've done that really good quality training, how do I feel going into those tryouts?
You should feel good.
Yeah, I feel prepared. I feel confident. So to me, the second reason for training is if I know I've done everything in each quadrant, you know, making sure that I'm getting adequate hydration, you know, good sleep, then I'm going to feel really good going in. You know, it's the old cliche, if you fail to prepare to fail. Yeah. But the number one reason for training, Mike, and most people, this is where the mental part comes. A lot of times athletes don't want to come and see a sports psychologist like me because they think I'm going to make them think. That's the last thing that I want them to do. Because now if my flashlight is on my head, because I'm focusing on my thoughts, whether they be mechanical, technical, don't let the coaching staff down. If my flashlight is on my head, then guess where my flashlight is not.
Yeah. Well, no.
And so the number one, and I would ask any handball coach in the world, but the reason why you get these guys to do these drills over and over and over again, it's muscle memory.
Yeah.
So now when you go to play, you're not thinking. You're just going, and it's amazing how many times, if somebody came off, the court in handball after a great performance, and I said, okay, what were you thinking about tonight? Guess what the answer is going to be? Thinking. Yeah. I wasn't thinking. I was just playing. I was just reading and reacting. I was just doing what I do.
Yeah.
So to me, the best handball players, and again, I'm not really familiar with your sport the way I should be, but correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but if you're going up, you'd want to have the beam nice and wide because you'd want to know where your teammates are. You'd want to know where the opposition is. But now if you're making a pass or you're taking a shot, well, guess what happens to the beam? It narrows.
It narrows, yeah.
Right. So the best handball players in the world, any sport that has dynamic motion in it, the flashlight, the best athletes in the world, they can have that beam go broad to narrow, broad to narrow, broad to narrow. And they're so good at focusing on what they need to be paying attention to in the moment. That's what makes them exceptional. So the whole core of my program is to play in the moment, because some athletes, again, when they lose their focus, their flashlight doesn't really travel to a different place. It travels to a different time zone. Mm-hmm. And if you, pardon the pun here, but if you think about it, I always use this as a kind of a fun example. Think about something that you did yesterday, Mike.
Okay.
Got it?
Yeah.
Okay. Now physically go there. Can you?
Not really, no.
No. Okay. Think about something you're going to do this weekend.
Okay.
Okay. Got it?
Yeah.
Okay. Now physically go there.
Well, I can't. Yeah.
Right. So the past and the future, guess where they only reside? In our mind. And so for some handball players, if they make a pass and they turn it over and they're still thinking about that turnover, guess where their flashlight is?
Yeah.
It's on their head. Yeah. And because it's on their head, it's the distracted driving law, in that, can I focus on two things at once? Yes, I can, but I can't do either one of them very well. And so for some handball players, when they lose their focus, it's not so much that they travel to a different place. When I was 12 and 13, I used to get really worried about what my parents thought about me in the stands. And so now if my flashlight's up there, I'm not paying attention to the puck and the play. But for other people, it's they time travel. They're either in the past or they're in the future, and they're not in the moment. And that's where, again, that simple concept of the flashlight, just doing that kind of self-check, just knowing where your flashlight is, because the first step is awareness. Because if you're not even aware that your flashlight's on the wrong thing at the wrong time, then how are you going to change it? So for me, that's where that little illustration, that allowed me to become a pro hockey player. Because now just that first step of having, this is where my flashlight needs to be. And obviously in handball and goaltending, it's going to be different. There's certain tactical cues that we really need to be paying attention to. And so one of the things that we can do here at Zone is we can literally train the brain and train the eyes to see more, process it faster, which in turn is going to allow us to make better decisions on the court. And now when we're doing that, what automatically happens to our confidence?
It grows.
It grows. And so, and then the skills of breath work. One of the reasons why I teach breath work so much is we can't feel our breath in the past. We can't feel our breath in the future. The only time and place that we can feel our breath is in the moment. And so if we're doing a simple little exercise like just breath work, like feeling the breath coming in and out of our body, we know that our mind is going to wander. It might wander to a sound or to a thought or to another sensation. And when we recognize that our mind has wandered, we gently bring it back. And a simple little exercise like that, Mike, it could be 2 minutes a day. We're training our brain how to focus better. We're training that if our mind wanders, during the game, that's okay, as long as we bring it back to what's happening in the moment. And so a simple thing like that, that's what coaches can talk about is, where is your flashlight? Just a simple thing like that. Right now, is your flashlight on the opposition, or is it on your job and what you need to do in that moment? And a simple little thing like that can help any athlete, from the little guys all the way up to the pros. Just a little thing like that can help them to get their focus where it needs to be. I hope that makes sense.
No, it makes a lot of sense. Just a couple of questions about the way that we run our program. So we have a development program, and the development program it's a program that we take the athletes out of junior high school that we see potential in, and we work with them. We practice. We have camps, and we head off to Europe. And if you've listened to a bit of podcasts, a lot of the players, they've gone through it, and they always say, "Oh, the first trip we get killed," right? Because we go to Europe and we played handball at 6-7 months, and we're playing against players that have played 10, 12 years. So a big thing that comes out of that is you learn a lot about the athletes and mental, about a lot of them. Some of them get discouraged and say, "Oh, well, why am I not the best? I've done work for 3 months and I should be better, and we're getting killed, so there's no point in me continuing." And then there's the other players that say, "Hey, listen, I know this is this was to see where I am and how hard I have to work." Do you have any ideas of how our coaches and our program should really work with those athletes going to Europe and those first experiences of you're not going to be so successful? And I believe that a lot of the athletes they're successful at such a young age sometimes because some of the programs or coaches always put them in the situation where they win easily. They don't have a lot of adversity. But I'm a believer in when we build a program is that they have to go through that losing. They got to go through that adversity to build that mindset. But a lot of the athletes,
I totally agree with you, Mike. And to me, the mindset. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's fine. Go ahead.
The one thing that I would suggest to coaches is, and I heard you say it several times on your podcast, and I 100% agree with you. How do you get better? You have to play against better competition.
Yeah.
And one of the things I often remind my athletes is that there's no such thing as failure.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things when I say that is if you don't get the result you want, like for example, if I'm hitting a golf ball and I hit it into the trees, well, that's giving me very, very valuable feedback. Oh, my club face was open or my club face was closed. So rather than being hard on myself, it's how can I take that information, use it so that I can design drills to help me move forward. Mm-hmm. And one of the things you'll see on that performance wheel is compassion. And where you can look at an event, like my goalie coach taught me this a long time ago, is he would always ask me, okay, if I had a chance to do this play again, knowing what I know now, what would I do differently to come up with the save? And it might have been, okay, I went down too early. I need to learn how to be more patient. Yeah. Or I didn't look off the puck and I didn't recognize that open man. So I need to work on, my peripheral vision. I need to work on being able to scan. So I'm doing it in a way where I'm not being hard on myself. It's almost like if I look at the event, I'm kind of looking at it as a weatherman. I'm just reporting the facts. I'm trying to be objective with it. And so like when we debrief a performance, first thing I would say to coaches, you always and this is what I learned from the military, is you always want to start off with what went well. You always want to, because if all we're doing is talking about what's wrong, this is going wrong, if that's all I'm focusing on, is what's not going, well, guess what's going to show up more, whether I want it or not. So the first thing I always say to coaches is we want to really highlight some of the things that we did really well in each of those quadrants. Yeah. And then the second thing is, okay, if we had a chance to do it again, what would we do differently? What do we need to work on? And then the great thing about that is, so the language we use, it's very specific and it's temporary. So if there's a specific thing that didn't allow us to perform well, what was it? Because the great thing about that is now we can go work on and off the playing surface to go work on that. And so to me, but that's how you got to get better. I tell a 12-year-old, go play against the 14-year-old, because and do it in a way like realize that there's a learning curve. Like the best athletes, again, like the classic example, Babe Ruth. Here's the all-time, home run king, but a lot of people don't realize he's also the all-time strikeout king.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
And I always I'll say to any of the handball players, even my hockey players, the best baseball players in the world, the best. We're talking guys that make $25 million a year. Yeah. For every 10 times they get up to bat, guess how many times they get on base?
30% of the time, maybe.
That's right, 3. Yeah. Yeah. So the other seven times, did they fail? No. Maybe they hit the ball solid and they hit it hard, but the guy in the infield made a great play.
Yeah.
Well, what did that guy do wrong? Nothing. And I think that the thing we got to be very careful. I have this what I call the high performance equation, and it goes like this, Mike. A times B equals C. And A is your A game. It's everything that you have 100% control over that will allow you to do your job. C is the results. I've never met a handball team or a handball player that comes up and says, John, I want to finish dead last in the league. I want to suck. So everybody wants to get results, okay? But the B in the equation is the uncontrollables. We don't have control over the coach's decisions, the refs' decisions, the opposition. And what that equation quickly starts to teach us, Mike, is if we allow our flashlight to go to the uncontrollables, things that we have no direct control over, and if we're working hard, but we keep our focus on things that we don't have control over, and we don't see any difference, well, what eventually is going to happen? We're going to lose our confidence. We're going to lose our motivation. So it sounds cliche-ish, but the first thing that I would say to the coaches and the kids is let's keep our focus on what I call control the controllables. Let's focus on the things that we have 100% direct control over that are going to allow us to do our job. And then that's where that mindset of the performance wheel comes in. Because now, okay, if I've come back from Japan and now where do we, okay, there's the best athletes. Is their conditioning better than ours? Well, okay, if it is, that's okay. But now let's go work on it. And so, and that's what a lot of the teams, if you look at in hockey, for the longest time, Canada was the model. Well, guess what all these other teams started doing? They started studying it, seeing what they were doing, and they were taking things from it and then bringing it back to their program. And so to me, the big thing to me to answer that question would be really making sure we're keeping our focus on the things that we have 100% direct control over, because that's going to give us the best chance to get the outcome that we want.
Okay. Now, you work with goalies a lot, and a hockey goalie, a top goalie in the NHL is what, at about 91% save percentage? Is that a...
That'd be pretty good. The best in a season would be probably 93.
93, okay. So now when you look at a handball goalie, a top goalie that makes 3-4 million euros a year is at a 35% save percentage.
Yep.
Now, we have some fantastic goalies here in Alberta that have opportunities. But what is a suggestion for you for a young goalie to keep their confidence when a game they have allowed 28 goals, which is still good, and they have a 35% save percentage? So when they look at their stats, well, I suck. I don't even save half the balls. Even though you've taught them to understand that is a high save percentage. But what are some of the mental things that our goalies can work on?
Great question. So one of the things, Mike, when I played, if you would have come and saw me play,
Yeah.
when I was really playing well, I would do a good job of beating the pass. I would do a good job of knowing where the opposition players were.
Mm-hmm.
I had a little phrase in my head: the blue of the crease is the ocean, the white of the ice is the beach. I'm on the beach with the babes, making the saves, And so, one of the things I would encourage kids to do, and that what that high performance equation clearly outlines, is you can have a phenomenal game and actually lose the game.
Yeah.
Because maybe your teammates don't show up that night.
Yeah.
Right? So it's really important to evaluate our performance, again, on things that we have 100% control over. So I always say to the kids, if Mike and I were up in the stands watching you play that night, when you're on your A game, when you're really, really playing well, what would be 6 to 8 actions that Mike and I would literally seeing you do when you're playing your best? And so now I get them to identify that, because it's like getting into the zone is like baking a cake. What are the key ingredients for you? And every goalie could be a little bit different. So now what we do, Mike, instead of whether I win 4-0 or I lose 4-0, I never base my game on stats. I never base it on outcome. What I'm going to do is, on a scale of 0 to 10, 0, I didn't play very well, and 10, I was on fire that night. Now they might say, like, tracking. Maybe for that goalie, tracking is really important. Like really seeing the ball released right into my body. That's when I'm really playing well. I'm really tracking well. Now, if he comes back that day and says, yeah, Johnny, I was a 6. I was a 6 out of 10. Okay, now what can we do on and off of the playing surface to bump that up to a 7? So now they're staying confident, Mike, because now they've got some specific things that they can do to go work on that. So one of the things I would say to the goalies is make sure you're evaluating your game, your performance. And I say that keyword performance, not the outcome. Because one of my goalies is a goalie for the Philadelphia Flyers. His name's Carter Hart. And just to give you an example, last year, Mike, he had 2 games where he was the first star in the game. And exact same, it was just weird, but he had the exact same amount of shots, the exact same goals against. And one of the performances he was really happy with. The other performance, he wasn't happy at all. How could that be?
I don't know.
Because remember, he didn't evaluate it on the save percentage. He didn't evaluate it on his goals against. He evaluated it on, these are the key things that allow me to play well. And one of the games, it was actually against the Boston Bruins, where he didn't see the guy off the back door. Oh. And he said, forget about knowing which way the guy's played. I didn't even see the guy. Johnny, I got to do a better job of identifying where potential threats are coming from. So even though he won and he was the first star in the game, he didn't base it on that, because again, getting the first star in the game, that's outside of his control. Yeah, that's someone else picking it. But him looking off the puck, identifying where potential threats are, that's something he has direct control over, and it's something that he can go work on off the ice with the visual edge or the neuro tracker. And he can do ball drills, he can do all sorts of peripheral ball drills to work on that. And by doing that, he's keeping his focus on himself and focusing on things that he has direct influence in terms of allowing him to stop more pucks. Or for a handball, okay, what are we going to do on and off to work on getting you to stop more balls? And so I think the biggest mistake is too many goalies. I had a goalie a couple of years ago, Mike, who played in La Ronge, Saskatchewan, and he started off 0-30. Okay. Yeah. And I always ask this question, what do you think his confidence was like?
It was probably, I would assume, it was horrible. He probably had no confidence.
And it was just the exact opposite. Because again, he never based it on the team's performance. Like he was there to, it's not that he's not going out there to try to win a game. He is, but he was doing a lot of things very, very well. And as he got better and better, then all of a sudden the outcome started to change. But that's why we use that performance wheel. So I would say to any goalie, okay, the way we keep our focus on what's important is by using that performance wheel and evaluating the game where we're being objective, but not being too hard on ourselves. And I love that question. That's what really changed my game when my goalie coach said, hey, what would you do differently to come up with the save? Mm-hmm. Now, guess what the brain is trying to picture already? It's trying to picture and then now, okay, what are some things we can do to work on building that? Does that mean getting your feet faster, getting your hands moving quicker, being able to see the play faster? Well, that's great. And the goalies can stay confident because it's something that they can directly take control over.
Yeah. I agree with everything that you're saying, but a little bit of devil's advocate is now I agree that stats don't matter, but now the problem is a young player.
I didn't say that.
No, I didn't mean it like that. Sorry, I shouldn't say stats don't matter, but there's more important things when you look at it. Like if you win the game, but you won the game, but I'm saying like a player goes home and now they have their sometimes parents or friends that are like, oh, look at you, I have 10 points, you have no points, or as an offensive player. And like the outside of the game where there's maybe more critical of the player that they don't know much about the game.
Right.
And so how does a younger athlete be able to take that and still be able to believe in themselves and the confidence that they have in themselves compared to because I just believe sometimes they go home, oh, well, Johnny, you only had one goal. And in handball at certain positions, some players should have 6-7 goals in a game. Okay, you only had one goal. That was horrible. What are some things they can do to keep their focus in the proper way, their confidence in the proper way from outside distractions?
Great question. I'm just going to, the head coach for the New England Patriots?
Belichick?
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you know his famous phrase?
No.
That he uses with all of his athletes, and I would arguably say probably one of the most successful franchises in the world.
Yeah.
His phrase is, do your job, know your job, enjoy your job. And I want to show you this I'm going to share my screen here, Mike, just to show you something. So this is one of my clients, and he's a starting goalie for the Philadelphia Flyers. And this, have a look what he says here.
Doesn't really matter what the whole city of Philadelphia thinks about me. Sure, it's cool that they think positive of me, but at the same time, the only thing that matters is what you think and your job. And your job is to stop the puck. That's perfect.
Sorry, go ahead.
It's perfect.
And I think the thing that, this is going to sound strange, but any handball player, I would always ask them, who's the best coach in the world? Like last night, Carter lost 4-0 against the New York Islanders. Okay. Now, guess what he will do with that performance afterwards?
I would assume reevaluate the game.
Yep. He'll look at it, see what he did well, see what he could have done a little bit differently.
Mm-hmm.
If there's time, he might go work on some things, and then boom, it's done. It's literally done by midnight. But what I would say to kids is, who knows your game better than you?
Nobody.
Right. And so to me, when parents say something, you can hear them out,
mm-hmm.
but you have to agree with them.
Nope.
And so that's one of the first things that and I'm not trying to be disrespectful to parents.
No, of course.
But it's, if a handball player tries out for a provincial team and they don't make it, I'm going to say, well, that's only one opinion, right? Hear the here are the coaching staff, here are the association, maybe really, listen to their feedback, because maybe there is some things that you can really take out of it and go back home and work on that. But again, remember, it's only one opinion, and it doesn't mean that it's the, how many players have been cut by teams and then they went on, and that was actually one of the best things that ever happened to them, because they realized, they really looked at each quadrant of the wheel. Like, my definition of mental toughness, there's two, is one is where do you suck? I know that sounds terrible, but really looking at each of those quadrants. One of my goalies is in the NHL. His name's Braden Holtby, and when Braden was 19, he got cut from the World Junior team. And when him and I sat down and we really looked at his performance, he had 4 out of the 5 parts of the wheel. His lifestyle was very good. He was a big, strong, physical kid. His technical skills were pretty good. Reading the play at that time, he was pretty good. But mentally, he was not strong. A goal would get by him and he would lose it. And that's where I sat down with him, and I was very candid with him, Mike. And I just said, look, if you want to get to that next level, you're going to have to work on learning how to be more in the moment. Now, he could have taken that, well, screw you, John Stevenson, who the hell are you to tell me? But he was humble, and that's where you'll see one of the C's on that performance wheel is coachability. How open are you to hear different ideas and different suggestions? And what I tell kids is, you go to any of these big camps, you're going to have a whole bunch of different coaches. Hear them out. Maybe one coach gives you one thing that you can add to your repertoire. So don't shut them out. Hear them out, but you don't have to agree with everything that person says. Yeah. And I've always joked about my own personal experience. My dad was a professional soccer player. He was a goalie, but he never once put a pair of skates on. So if my dad gave me some advice, part of it was, well, like I'd say to some of the kids, how many times has your mom played handball? How many times has your dad played handball? Yeah. It's one thing to be the armchair critic up in the stands. Yeah. And I think the big thing, again, I would emphasize to handball players, like, there's lots of things you might be doing away from the ball that are really, really good on the defensive side. And to me, you could have a really, really strong game and not get a single point. Yeah. So again, to me, I go back to, how are we evaluating success, right? Like right now, if I asked Carter what his stats were for the playoffs right now, guess what his answer is going to be?
I'm not sure.
Exactly. That's his answer. Don't know, don't care.
Huh.
Because, and it's not that he wants to win a Stanley Cup. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. But again, if his flashlight is on the scoreboard or on stats, guess where it's not? Not on the playing surface that's happening right in front of him. So to me, if somebody's criticizing your game, you can hear them out, listen to what they say, because remember, it's just feedback. And what you decide to do with it, you can either use it or let it use you. And all it is, it's just feedback. It's just one person's opinion. And maybe there is something, maybe there is a bit of a nugget, and you can take it and start to go work on that, in the next practice. But I think it's really important for people to realize you want to keep your focus on you and your job. And that's what you saw Carter said. It's like, I can't worry about what things that I have no direct control over.
Yeah, interesting. Now going into zone performance, if you can tell us a little bit about if someone's in handball, a player or a goalie would now want to come and learn more about it. What do they need to do, and what are kind of the steps that you would take with an athlete?
Well, the real cool thing, Mike, we have a room in our office called the cognitive perceptual room. And this is very sophisticated equipment. We're one of the only private companies in North America. A lot of the major league sports have this equipment in their locker room. We're one of the only organizations in North America that has this type of equipment that amateur and players can come and do. And so I can show you a little bit about it, through the video so the kids can see this.
Yep.
And what we're offering is anybody can come and see what this equipment is. It really basically trains the brain and trains the eyes to see more and process it more and process it faster, which in turn allows just way better decision making, better eye-hand coordination, better attention skills. And a lot of this not just translates into sport, but it translates into academics. I've had so many kids turn around and say, this training has helped me to get my driver's license. It's helped me to do well on provincial exams. So one of the first things I could say is anybody can come here and do an hour free. There's no cost to them whatsoever. So they can kind of check it out and see what it's all about, and if it's something that they're interested in doing. And I can show you a couple of the companies here. The other thing, just to let parents and kids know, I am a registered psychologist. And if, obviously things are tight right now in light of COVID, but if people have insurance, whether they have Blue Cross or Green Shield or Sun Life, they can often do their training using their benefits. And we can offer direct billing. For some of the kids, it may not cost them a cent to do this type of training, this elite training. So we're offering programs that, elite athletes are, we're exposing them to elite training. And I'll show you a couple of the things here so you can get an idea.
Okay.
So, yeah, let me show you just to give you an idea of what they're doing here.
While you're setting that up, what about, do you guys also work with, like you said, sports psychologists, the mental aspect of someone with a major injury coming back and working with they're getting their confidence back and, starting to, that long process of, I'm never going to be the player I used to be. Do you guys work with athletes like that as well?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, Mike, because going back to, I just lost you here. I'm going to show it again here.
Yeah.
So it was funny, back just before the NHL All-Star break, Carter got hurt, and he couldn't go on the ice for 5 weeks. Now, just because he couldn't do this, okay, how is that different than COVID?
It's not.
It's not. But what he did is he came back home. He spent time with Aaron Baker at True Form, working on his Pilates and Garuda. And he also spent time with his physiotherapist and his personal fitness trainer out in Sherwood Park, and just working on body parts that he could. So what he could, just because he couldn't do this, didn't mean he couldn't work on this. Okay. Then he also came to our facility, and he also did things at home to work on his tactical play. He does a lot of game film, studies a lot of game film, and he does a lot of mental rehearsal. And then he'll go to his mental gym every day, and he'll do various types of breath work and mindfulness. Now, so he contacted his nutritionist and revised this. So what he wasn't doing here, guess what he was doing, Mike? He's working in all those other 4 areas. Mm-hmm. Now, ironically, because you're right, a lot of times the athletes fear that when they come back, they're going to be slow. They're going to be behind the play. And this type of work, which you're going to see here in a second, actually can make you even faster. And so what happened was, when he came back, he ended up being the player of the week back-to-back in the NHL. He ended up setting a record, 9 wins in a row, highest save percentage ever by a rookie. And you would think, okay, he must have been on the ice, but he wasn't. He was off the ice for 5 weeks. So a lot of times when athletes are injured, this is where we'll say, okay, just because you can't do this doesn't mean we can't go work on these other areas and to actually even make your game stronger. And we've had lots of athletes, because they'd never even heard of this, and then they got involved in this, their game just went to another level. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So someone like in handball, shoulder injuries are a big thing. Then if they can still come in and you guys just work around that in the mental skills, tactical things that they can do that doesn't affect any kind of.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So let me show you. I'll share this again, and I'll share it. This gives you a little bit of a flavor of some of now this is the IMG Academy in the States, but we have the exact same equipment. This will give you the audience a little bit of a flavor of what we do when we talk about cognitive perceptual training. Sorry, a little bit of delay here.
Hi, my name is David De Silva. I'm a mental conditioning coach as well as the lead of the vision training and cognitive perceptual program we have here at IMG Academy. We're here to kind of look at a few exercises that really help our athletes understand the importance of how quickly they can see, how fast they think, and how quickly they can make those decisions. So really anticipating and reacting, as well as understanding that they must focus on what they need to do and really do it well.
I think it's amazing. I think high school athletes, if they have this resource, if they have this opportunity to use these things, especially from a young age, if they're able to get their heads around it at a young age and really develop their vision properly from now, it can really help them long term.
That see, think, do principle really helps our athletes get that confidence to perform well when they're out there on the field. And this is one of very few places in the country that has a room designed for these kind of things.
So you guys have those,
Yes.
So that's the things you guys you work on with the athletes.
Here we
Yes. So literally, the great thing with all of this equipment, we can literally measure these 10 core skills. And more importantly, we can compare them to an elite athlete. So they can see where they're at right now and where they need to go if they want to get to that elite level. And so a lot of our athletes are, from all sorts of different disciplines, will come here twice a week. When our athletes leave, and maybe they're playing, in Europe, they can do this literally on their laptop. They have this technology where they can continue to keep doing it at home, and that's exactly what's happened right now. We have a lot of our athletes. They're going, okay, well, because I can't get on, the playing surface doesn't mean that I can't become a better athlete. And this is the type of equipment that we literally have in our office. And like I said, anybody can come for the first time. There's absolutely no cost. We can even do an assessment with them. So the Neuro Tracker, this literally trains brain processing speed, working memory, selective attention. It allows the athlete, the one great thing, God forbid, but if an athlete ever did sustain a concussion, we can, make sure that they can return back to the playing surface safely. So we can use this equipment not only to provide a baseline assessment, but we can also use it to rehab the brain so that it's just a stronger, if not stronger, going back. Mm-hmm. So this is the Neuro Tracker. Just let the guys see. This is one example.
We have the Neuro Tracker, which is a three-dimensional exercise in which Anthony, as the athlete, is going to have to try and pick up 4 of the 8 balls as they bounce and move in this cube, wearing these glasses, and then he's going to actually input which 4 he thinks they are. This is going to test his decision-making process, his spatial awareness, and most definitely his awareness and his attention of what's going on in front of him. Now we make sure we're in 3D. You see 3D okay? Okay, here's the keyboard. All right, Anthony, so try and keep your eyes more or less in the middle. Good, again. All right, Anthony, so just like a wide receiver, there's a lot of moving targets. Try and spread your attention. Key moments of any game, really, You're looking at the field, you've got a lot of things that are moving, you're moving. So trying to be able to track that with these kind of constraints where the speed is increased, this is what's going to make you better at making those correct plays. And you're almost done, so you got one more to go, I think. 1.69, well done. So Anthony, this is how we track progress. We look at how you did in the beginning, 1.09, and the average is actually between 0.75 and 1.3, so you did very well. You got to 1.8, which is your best. You peaked here twice. You're probably averaging right here about 1.6, so you did very well today, and this is how the computer defines the speed. So the higher this number, the higher you're able to process information, spread your attention, maintain that attention, which are key components. And as it says here, better attention, better awareness helps you become a better performer.
And so the comment that we get all the time, Mike, is that when athletes get involved in this, we'll hear people say all the time, well, the game slowed down. You know, it just seems like the game is slowed down. Well, the game hasn't slowed down. It's that their brain and their eyes are seeing more and they're processing more. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So this is the great thing about this program. We can literally, this is some of the tools. I'll show one more here. This is a company called Synaptic, and they have these, what they call strobe glasses. Probably the most famous guy using the strobe glasses is Steph Curry. This will give you a kind of idea what the Synaptic does. This is another piece of equipment we have here.
Hello, my name is Joe Bingold. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Synaptic. At Synaptic, we're all about sensory performance. The senses dominate brain function. About 80% of your brain is somehow related to sensory input, sensory processing. 2/3 of your brain is about vision and vision processing. So when you think about human health, human performance, you have to address the senses to be successful. And now historically, practitioners have struggled to incorporate sensory processing into their practice because it's complicated and there aren't a lot of tools out there. Enter Synaptic. Behind me you see a sensory station, and this is a graph that shows the results of a person's sensory assessment. The graph is shown to show you where you have strengths and where you have weaknesses. The further you are from the center, the stronger you are at that skill. So this person is 95th percentile in contrast sensitivity. They're doing great there, don't need to work on it. But look here, 20th percentile in their depth perception. And so with this assessment profile, which is customized based on the results of an individual, you now know exactly what they need to work on to help improve their skills and make them better, either to help them recover or just perform better in life. This baseline can also show you how you've improved. So in this case, this person was working on their depth perception. They went from 20th to 47th percentile. That's great. As the person improves, the assessment will show that, and then they can continue on in their training. So at Synaptic, what we provide is a baseline tool, a foundational tool that you can use in your practice to assess these skills in an automated fashion, get those great reports, and from there, we're going to provide you a multitude of tools to train and improve the skills that are weak.
We have tools that range from visual search, perception training, dynamic vision, visual motor integration to eye-hand coordination. The sensory training app allows a professional to provide customized training and therapy for their athletes, patients, or clients. All of our tools can be customized to the context of the individual's life, whether you're working with an athlete, a student with autism, a stroke survivor, or a patient with Parkinson's. The Synaptic app provides the everyday sensory workout to do at home. The professional sets the training plan for the individual, and then they follow the plan at home. It allows the professional to extend their reach beyond their facility. This is the Synaptic Quad Strobe, and this is eyewear where the lenses go from opaque to clear. And this is designed to take away visual information that's getting to your brain, so that when you take away the strobe, then with that efficiency, you see the world in a different way. This also induces sensory re-rating so that you're less dependent on your visual information and more dependent on your proprioceptive and somatosensory information. These quad strobes also have quadrants where we can isolate each quadrant and change the opacity and the strobing rate of each one. What this allows us to do is to isolate visual pathways so that we can activate different parts of the brain.
I hope this video has been useful to help you understand a little bit more how Synaptic can come alongside you and your clients to help improve their sensory performance.
So does that give you a little bit of a flavor, Mike, as to what we do? That's the cognitive perceptual side of things. And then in terms of, confidence, composure, one of the cool things, like I just had a young athlete in last night, and one of the things, they would get really hard on themselves if they made a mistake. And the one cool thing about when we do cognitive perceptual, because the trials happen so quickly, if they don't learn how to let go, guess what's going to happen on the next trial? They're going to miss it.
Yeah.
And so a side benefit of this, alongside of training the brain and the eyes, but the athlete learns how to be more in the moment. They literally learn how to play just one play at a time, one shift at a time. That's a great benefit to it. Is it's experiential. It's not about talking. It's about literally going in and, pardon the pun, but getting your hands dirty.
Yeah.
And so the great thing is, a lot of the kids, it's fun. It's not they enjoy it. They don't like, oh, this is like a mental workout, but it's fun. It's something. I haven't ever had too many kids come out of there and go, oh man, that was boring. And so this is things that they can do tangibly right now to improve their game. I can show one thing for all the athletes if they want, like, to work on their concentration right now. If you want me to show.
Yes, please do.
Yeah. So under that quadrant, again, I'll just share my screen here first. Talk about concentration grids. So remember when I said, okay, think of your focus like a flashlight.
Yeah.
And the best athletes in the world can have that flashlight go from broad to narrow really quickly. Well, this is something that they can do at home. It's absolutely free. If they go to Google, okay, and they type in the word concentration grids, and what will happen, Mike, is they will see this one that's called free number table concentration grid. Okay?
Yeah.
And one of the things I'm going to ask you, is it eye-hand coordination or is it hand-eye?
Sorry, say that again.
So I always ask my coaches,
Yeah.
Is it eye-hand coordination or is it hand-eye coordination?
I think it's eye-hand coordination.
And that's exactly right. Because I always joke with people, I said, okay, if you close your eyes, I'm going to throw a brick at you right now and catch it. They're going to be like, no. So what do? We see, we decide, then we act. So what we train handball players is to scan, plan, and do at faster and faster rates. Now, one of the cool things, you're going to see this screen pop up, and what will happen is if they hit the button, a bunch of numbers will come up.
Yeah.
And the goal is to try to find the numbers in sequential order as fast as you can. Now, the wrong way is to take your mouse and try to find it this way. What you want to do is, imagine you're on that playing surface, is find the number with your eyes and then click the mouse. Okay. Now, Carter Hart, when he started with me when he's 9 years old. He's 21 right now.
Yeah.
First time he did this grid, it took him about 12 and a half minutes. He's got the record right now, 1 minute 45 seconds.
Wow.
So at the end of this, Mike, it'll give you a score. And you can objectively measure. This is something that, if you have an internet connection, you can do anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
Now, maybe you can help me out here a bit, Mike, because I don't know your sport all that well. But with hockey, for example, I do this a whole bunch of different ways. So the standard grid is a 10 by 10. So the first time, I could have a 16-year-old handball player on here and we'll get a baseline. So I'll have them do a 10 by 10 in a nice quiet room.
Mm-hmm.
Then I will have them do it in a noisy room. Why would I get them to do that?
Like you have music being played?
I could be music, I could be yelling at them. I've even had brothers and sisters where they're screaming things at them. Why would we do that?
Well, it's more, that's the way the game is played. There's a coach yelling at them. There's fans that are screaming.
That's right. So we're just trying to simulate
Yeah.
game condition. So the first version that I have is to have them do a 10 by 10. How long, and I apologize, Mike, I'm really sorry, but how long is a handball game?
It's there's 2 halves and it's 30 minutes a half.
Okay. So the other
An hour
thing,
long.
okay. So what we could do, I'll show you what I'd get any of my handball players to do, is I'd have them start with a 5 by 5.
Okay.
Okay. And what I would have them do is set a timer on their phone for 30 minutes. Why 30 minutes?
Because that's a half. That's how you
Right.
have to keep long you have to keep your focus.
Right. So they hit the button and they do a 5 by 5.
Yeah.
Okay. So they do this as quick as they can.
Yeah.
And then they go to a 6 by 6. And then they go to a 7 by 7. And then 8 by 8. And they see how deep they can go in that time frame.
Yeah.
And so again, same thing. We do it in a quiet room. And then the next time we do it where it's a noisy room. So that's one of the ways that we can train the brain to focus for that length of time. The other version is if we want to work on that mental stamina, we would have them do a 15 by 15.
Yeah. Oh.
So now they got to scan more and they got to process more. And again, this is weight training for the brain. They at the end, I had one of my NHL goalies. He had been doing the 10 by 10 grid, got it down to about 2 minutes and 15 seconds.
Yeah.
And one of the knocks on him was that he'd give up a soft goal at an untimely manner.
Yeah.
So I suggested, okay, let's start doing the 15 by 15s. Now, the first time he did this, Mike, it took just over 40 minutes to do.
Yeah.
And by the end of the season, he had got it down to 10 minutes.
From 40 to 10 minutes. Wow.
And he wasn't giving up those bad goals anymore.
So every time you would do this, the numbers change and it's not just always the same chart.
That's right. So
Okay.
if I bring it up right now, you're going to see it's random every
Okay.
time.
Okay.
Now, the other way we can do this, is there like a power play or any kind of penalty kill in handball?
There's 2-minute penalties.
Perfect. Okay, so now guess what we're going to do?
Go.
We'll put a timer on for 2 minutes,
Yeah.
right? And we could do a 10 by 10 or a 15 by 15 and see how deep they can go in 2 minutes.
Huh.
So we're simulating a game condition. And the great thing is there's absolutely no cost to this whatsoever.
Yeah.
Now, every handball player that I would work with, I would want to teach them 3, 4, 5 ball juggling.
Yeah.
Because, and then we have things like what's called the vector ball and the hexa sticks. I do a lot of ball drills.
Yeah.
The 4 types of ball drills that we do here, 1 is a narrow focus, 2 is a broad focus.
Yeah.
3, we need ball drills that are unpredictable. We don't know where and when the ball is coming from, which is handball. And we need ball drills that simulated decision making.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got a lot of training aids that we can use to help them, with their eye-hand coordination. And that's one of the, again, these are the types of things that we can do at the office here so that they can train their brain and their eyes to see and process more. That's just one of the exercises. And there's, like I said, there's the grids and there's all sorts of different ways we can use that tool to make them, sharper. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. Last few questions before I don't want to keep you up too long here. But is there any way that I can bring in one of our athletes and be able to kind of video it a little bit to be able to show it to people?
I would love that. I would love that. Yeah, we would love that. Because again, and I'm being honest, we haven't had a handball player here.
Yeah.
But the principles are the same. It's anything with dynamic motion involved. This originated, a lot of this equipment originated around Premier Soccer in England. And now you'd be hard pressed to see, all the major league teams around the world now are using this. And the interesting thing Guess what's happening to the injury rate?
It's going down,
And guess what's happening to the scoring rate?
going up.
Right. But the thing is, they're not focusing on that. That's the irony. That's the irony of it.
That's a
It's,
good one.
because when we talk about focus, I call it the 3 P's of focus, Mike.
Yeah.
One is positive. I always want to tell my brain what I want to do, not what I don't want to do. Second thing is process. If I keep working on the process, sooner or later, like I used to take my goalies to the Fox Drive stairs or take them to the Royal Glenora staircase. And we used to do that staircase, twice a week, from April till mid-August.
Yeah.
Well, if you're doing that twice a week for, 4 months, by the end of that 4 months, guess what's going to happen to your leg strength? Guess what's going to happen to your cardio? And if you're doing it, the results will take care of themselves. So that's the second P is more focus on the process and let the outcome take care of itself. And then the final P is present moment. What can I do? And I would say to any of the handball players, finishing up here is, what can you do today? What can you literally do today that's within your control in each of these quadrants that's going to make you a better handball player? Yeah. And it could be leg strength. It could be, training my peripheral vision. It could be learning how to be more in the moment and learning how to focus better and learn how to let go of stuff. So that's one of the things I'd encourage, and again, that's something, if you want to bring any of the athletes here, we would love to have them here so they can get a taste of what this is all about.
Yeah. Right after the podcast, I'll talk with you about maybe setting up a time.
Sure.
And then the last question now, if any of the athletes are interested to go see it, to try it out, how would they contact you? I'll put all your social media up as well, but if you could just talk a little bit about how they would contact you.
Sure. So this is our page. It's a zoneperformance.ca.
Okay.
And again, they can just contact us via the email here. Okay. And this, as far as services, if they wanted to have more information about the cognitive perceptual training or the individual sports psych, all they have to do is, this will give you all the information about the cognitive perceptual training. And like I said, all they have to do is contact us via email. And if they would like to come in and do it, we are open. We're doing all the policies in place to keep everybody safe. And then we can also show them things that they can do. A lot of these companies have developed this type of equipment where they can literally do it at home as well.
Okay, so if one of the athletes from Red Deer, from Calgary is really interested, they can contact you and you guys could maybe set up online sessions or anything like that?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I'll put up all that on when the podcast goes live on Thursday. But I think this is fantastic. This is something that Alberta Team Handball Federation needs to bring in for the provincial programs and their clubs. So it's something we're going to really try to work with you on to come up with some kind of a program because this is something really, really important that we're lacking in our programs to develop our athletes in other ways than just technical skills.
Well, and I get a lot of parents, Mike, ask me, is there an ideal time to start my athlete? Yeah. And, like I mentioned before, Carter started with me when he was 9. Braden started with me when he was 14. The sooner the better, because again, a lot of the skills, you'll hear a lot of coaches, and I'm not trying to be hard on coaches, but they'll say, Donnie, focus. Yeah. But no one's ever taught them how to focus.
Yeah.
And so the sooner we can start, the better, because it's a skill. So we're going to teach them how to focus better. And that can translate not just into sport, but like I said, all sorts of different areas in their lives. So that's one thing I'd say to parents is we have athletes that are I've had the youngest I've had is 7 years old. Yeah. So it's something that it's a trainable skill.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for this. I think this is fantastic. It's something I think a lot of our athletes are going to be very interested in. So I'm excited to see what happens with this. And thank you. I know you're busy, so I thank you for all your time here. And if you have any last things to say, other than that, I think we could end it.
Well, and again, first of all, thank you for having me on the podcast. And second thing, I just say to all the kids is that I know COVID's tough. There's no doubt about it. But what we can do is we can use this time, in my opinion, to actually make ourselves better athletes, stronger athletes, so that when everything does get back to play and resume, we can actually come back even better than we ever were before. And I just want to let, like any of the kids, if they want to learn any of the ball drills, I can then just, like that link, the cognitive perceptual link, Mike, there's all sorts of ball drills, eye exercises. I'd be more than glad to, you feel free to post that link so the kids can go in and look at that. And again, the concentration grids, I can send you that link so that they can go do this stuff. I don't want money to be the reason for them not to be able to do things. And there's lots of things that they can do for free that can make them, stronger with their sport and with their life, and keep them, keep their mind focused, not let their mind, get down because they're not with their friends and their teammates.
Yeah, that's well said. And that's the focus is the hard thing for these young athletes coming back, is keeping that focus. I find that it's been more difficult now.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I'll talk to you off the podcast, but thank you so much for doing this.
You're welcome. Thanks again for having me.